A not-so-sweet 16, the Long Island party intended to spread joy appears to have also spread something much worse. We're talking about coronavirus, and that is where we start tonight. I'm Natalie Pascarella.
And I'm Chuck Scarborough. We're talking about a possible super spreader event. It happened last month at a venue in Miller Place, and now over 3 dozen cases of COVID could be linked to that celebration. News for us, Greg Circles live in Miller Place right now with details for us. Greg?
Well, Chuck, Suffolk County executive says the guest list for that Sweet 16 party totaled 81 people, well above the state limit of 50. And the result, as you guys said, a lot of trouble.
This was a super spreader event.
The Miller Place Inn hosted the Sweet 16 party last month that county officials now say resulted in 37 positive COVID cases, 28 of them school-age kids.
In Suffolk County, we have not seen an event like this before at any time throughout this pandemic.
Suffolk County executive says because of that party, students and personnel at 35 schools had to be placed under quarantine, 270 people in all. The Miller Place Inn has now been shut down, its owners hit with $12,000 in fines.
We can't say that with any certainty that it was caused here. We were only told that the outbreak was here.
The manager says the inn thought it was adhering to safety guidelines. Today he offered prayers for those who contracted the virus.
We told them, we said we have to go do everything by the rules. Like we don't want to take any risk here.
Josh Liberty and Selena Rodriguez have also been victimized by what happened. The Bay Ridge couple's 40-person wedding was supposed to be held at Miller Place Inn this weekend. Now they're scrambling to get their $5,500 deposit refunded from a catering hall they say has paid little attention to safety protocol.
My fiance said, you know, are you going to do bridal? Are you going to do temperature checks? And she emailed us back and said, no, you have to do that.
It seems like they weren't so hard on the rules. It's sickening to me, Greg, like sickening.
The engaged couple even sent us a social media post from the manager of the catering hall in which he said, quote, the country has moved on from COVID. Even those who contract the virus, he said, don't get as sick as those with malaria and the flu. Again, the catering hall will be in court to address those $12,000 in fines next month. We're live in Miller Place. Greg Sergel, News 4 New York.
All right, Greg, thank you. In the meantime, it is a decisive week in the COVID fight here in the city. Mayor Bill de Blasio believes that enforcement efforts to curb a rise in COVID cases in the so-called hot zones appear to be working. The city, for the first time in months, is now crossing that 500 new cases on a 7-day average. The citywide testing positive is at almost 2%. And Governor Cuomo said that clusters are fueling a 70% spike in hospital admissions. I want to get out to News 4's Andrew Siff live in Rego Park with that and some good news, Andrew, for schools.
Right. Well, Natalie, schools like this one behind me are closed simply because they sit in red zones. Some non-essential businesses also closed. But those harsh measures, according to the mayor today, seem to be working. Mayor Bill de Blasio said COVID cases in the red zones are leveling off after just 4 days of state-ordered business closures in parts of Brooklyn and Queens.
This is the week where we can start to turn the tide in those red zone areas and contain the problem that we're seeing there.
But leveling off still leaves the city precariously close to dangerous thresholds, like the number of new daily cases on this chart. Very close again to the 550 mark identified by the mayor for rolling back some of the reopenings. And today's percentage of positive cases barely below the 2% that could close indoor dining. I asked the mayor, where's the leveling off taking place?
We're just seeing areas that were going up, not going up anymore. It's not across the board. It's not perfect. We have a lot of work to do.
Another warning sign, hospitalizations, now at 923 statewide, the highest level since June. Meanwhile, encouraging news at area schools that started random COVID testing. Of the first 56 schools that reported results, 1,750 adults were tested and only one positive case. That's 0.06%.
I live in the area and I'm concerned about my health.
The city is ramping up testing by adding portable sites like this one to parks and playgrounds in the cluster zones.
I want to be sure everything is okay.
Alicia Pena took advantage of a mobile site in her Rego Park neighborhood today and got a COVID test for the very first time.
I want to be sure I'm healthy for my family, for everybody.
The mayor said that this week could be critical in determining how long these new shutdowns will last in the red zones. He said by the end of this week, we could know if maybe only 1 week left would be necessary. We're live in Rego Park. Andrew Siff, News 4 New York.
All right, we will be watching. Andrew, thanks for that. Ohio, Michigan, and Virginia have now been added to the Tri-State's travel quarantine list. So this means that if you travel to New York, New Jersey, or Connecticut from those states, you'll have to quarantine for 14 days once you get here. No states were removed from that list today. It brings the total to 36 states and 2 territories.
In Westchester, we've learned a COVID spike among student athletes is growing, causing Iona College to hit a pause on in-person learning. At least 69 cases, positive cases that we know of, have hit 8 different athletic teams. News 4's Mark Santee is in New Rochelle with the other link all of these cases have in common, now under investigation.
The college says these cases trace back to mainly student athletes and one isolated event. A different lesson being taught here on the campus of Iona College. Masks, social distancing, no visitors. This after the school saw a spike among athletes and hit the pause button on in-class learning.
It's the smartest decision they could make.
The school releasing this statement, which reads in part, quote, a total of 69 cases have been identified as of Monday evening. 8 different athletics teams have at least 1 positive case each. Nearly all cases involve student athletes. Contact tracing indicates that the virus was transmitted through a single isolated event and is not indicative of a broader spread on campus.
The school's taking it pretty seriously.
Students say Iona College's rigorous testing and transparency means a lot during this time.
It's very important because I need full transparency if I'm going into any sort of institution.
Dr. Michael Palumbo, Executive Vice President and Chief Medical Officer of White Plains Hospital, says younger people must take the pandemic seriously.
Where there are events where people are packed in, they're not wearing their masks, and that greatly increases the risk of a super spreader event.
While New Rochelle endured the first COVID outbreak on the East Coast, Mayor Noam Bramson calls this an isolated issue.
Fortunately, there's no indication at this time that the outbreak at Iona extends beyond its student body.
For this Iona College junior, Eileen Exama hopes quick action by the school and students means getting back to in-school learning sooner rather than later.
I really want people to understand that these work. They are very important for us.
The school is working to track down the source of the outbreak, saying, quote, there will be a judicial review process to determine any potential consequences. In New Rochelle, I'm Mark Santia, News 4 New York.